At some point, almost everyone who tries to build wealth asks the same quiet question. Why does this feel so slow? You can be doing the right things, saving, investing, avoiding obvious mistakes, and yet your net worth barely seems to move. That feeling isn't failure. It's a phase most people misunderstand. Wealth doesn't grow evenly over time. It moves in jumps. Long stretches of little visible progress are followed by moments where everything starts responding faster. In this video, we will focus on recognizing those moments in advance, understanding what actually causes them, and positioning you so that when the shift comes, you're ready to benefit from it instead of missing it. First point, when growth starts outrunning your contributions. In the beginning, wealth building's mechanical. Your net worth moves almost entirely because of what you add. Save more, it grows. Skip a month, it stalls. Returns exist, but they're too small to matter in any practical way. That's not a flaw in the process. It's how compounding works when the base is still small. What changes everything is scale. Once your invested capital reaches a certain size, the returns stop being background noise and start becoming a visible force. This is the first real tipping point, when the growth generated by your assets in a normal year exceeds what you personally managed to contribute through savings. At that moment, effort is no longer the main engine, capital is. Imagine someone earning $60,000 a year who manages to invest $10,000 annually. For years, that contribution does most of the work. If their portfolio is $30,000, even a strong 8% return adds only $2,400. That barely registers. But fast forward 10 or 15 years of consistency. Now the portfolio is closer to $200,000. The same 8% adds $16,000 in a year. That's more than the person's annual contribution without extra hours worked or lifestyle changes. The same behavior produces a completely different outcome because the base is larger. This is where people misunderstand progress. They expect visible results early when the math guarantees subtlety. According to long-term market data, the majority of compounding impact happens in the later years, not the early ones. Small balances grow slowly even with good returns. Large balances grow fast even with average ones. There's also a shift in how decisions feel at this stage. Early on, every choice carries emotional weight. A bad month feels personal. A market drop feels like wasted effort. Once growth starts outpacing contributions, volatility becomes less threatening. You begin to understand that short-term movement matters less than staying invested. Time, not timing, is doing the heavy lifting. This phase rewards structure more than intelligence. Automatic investing, low costs, diversification, and patience quietly outperform complex strategies. Research consistently shows that investors who trade less and stay invested longer tend to earn higher net returns than those who chase performance. The advantage doesn't come from prediction, it comes from endurance. Another important aspect here is restraint. Many people reset this tipping point without realizing it. Every time income rises, lifestyle expands to match it. The surplus disappears. Capital never reaches critical mass. The growth engine never fully turns on. Those who cross this first threshold usually do one simple thing well. They allow excess income to remain invested long enough to compound uninterrupted. This tipping point is not about becoming rich. It's about no longer being the sole driver of your financial progress. Your money begins participating meaningfully in its own growth. That changes how you plan, how you react to uncertainty, and how you think about the future. Once growth starts carrying more weight than contributions, the system becomes harder to stop. And that momentum is what leads into the next shift, where income from assets begins to rival income from work. Before we go further, if you are enjoying this video so far, consider giving it a like. It really helps the channel and tells YouTube that you're interested in this kind of content. Now, let's continue. Second point, when your portfolio starts to match your paycheck. The second tipping point arrives when your portfolio stops feeling abstract and starts competing with your job. Not in theory, not in long-term projections, but in actual numbers you can compare. You look at what your investments generate in a year and realize that it's approaching what you earn through work. This moment changes how you perceive risk, time, and effort. Until now, your salary has been the unquestioned center of your financial life. It pays the bills, funds your lifestyle, and supplies the capital you invest. Your portfolio exists in the background, growing quietly. But once asset growth starts matching a meaningful portion of your paycheck, that hierarchy begins to shift. Work is still important, but it's no longer the only pillar holding everything up. Consider someone earning $80,000 a year. After taxes, maybe $55,000 actually hits their account. If their portfolio is large enough to generate $30,000 to $40,000 in annual returns during a normal market year, the comparison becomes unavoidable. Even though those returns aren't guaranteed or evenly distributed, they represent something powerful, a second income stream that doesn't require additional hours. This is where the compounding effect becomes psychologically tangible. Before this stage, wealth is mostly future-oriented. You're investing for something distant. Now it starts touching the present. You begin thinking in terms of optionality. A bad job situation no longer feels catastrophic. Negotiations feel different. Decisions slow down. You gain the ability to wait. From a financial perspective, this tipping point highlights an often overlooked reality. Income from capital scales differently than income from labor. Salaries are capped by time, energy, and market demand. Asset growth scales with size. A larger portfolio doesn't need more hours to produce more results. It just needs to exist. That asymmetry is what makes this stage so impactful. There's also a subtle shift in behavior around spending. People who reach this point tend to become more selective, not more extravagant. When your investments start doing real work, waste becomes visible. Every unnecessary expense is now measured against what that money could have produced if left invested. The opportunity cost becomes concrete, not theoretical. Studies on long-term wealth accumulation consistently show that net worth accelerates sharply once investment income reaches a significant percentage of earned income. At that point, the compounding loop tightens. Returns generate more capital, which generates more returns, even if contributions stay flat. This stage also forces clarity. You start separating income that depends on you from income that doesn't. That distinction reshapes how you think about stability. A job can disappear, markets fluctuate, but having multiple income engines reduces reliance on any single one. You're no longer planning only for growth, you're planning for resilience. Importantly, this tipping point doesn't mean financial independence. You still work, you still earn, but the balance of power begins to shift. Your time becomes slightly less constrained by necessity. And once your portfolio consistently rivals your paycheck, the idea of work itself starts to evolve, not as something to escape, but as something you no longer need to cling to, which opens the door to the final and most misunderstood turning point. Third point, when work becomes optional. The final tipping point isn't defined by a number, it's defined by leverage. Work stops being necessary for survival and becomes a choice about how you want to allocate your time. At this stage, your net worth doesn't just fund your lifestyle, it absorbs uncertainty. According to long-term retirement and wealth studies, once investment income consistently covers 60% to 80% of basic living expenses, people dramatically reduce their dependence on earned income, even if they don't formally retire. Another data point puts this into perspective. Households in the top 10% of net worth derive more than half of their total income from assets, not labor. The defining factor isn't extreme wealth, it's the proportion of income coming from capital. This changes behavior in measurable ways. People with significant non-labor income are less likely to accept unstable or low-quality jobs and are less reactive to short-term income shocks. Their careers become less linear. Gaps, transitions, and experimentation become common because the downside risk is buffered by accumulated assets. When income is no longer tightly coupled to effort, decisions slow down. You stop optimizing every move for immediate financial return. Planning shifts toward durability and positioning rather than speed. This is why people past this point tend to make fewer reactive decisions and show greater tolerance for uncertainty. There's also a broader social effect. Economic systems tend to reward those who can wait and penalize those who cannot. People who need income immediately tend to accept worse terms. Lower pay, less flexibility, higher stress. Those who don't face that pressure negotiate differently. They wait, they walk away. Over time, this compounds into better opportunities, not because of superior ability, but because of reduced exposure to bad choices. Individuals with high savings rates and diversified assets experience less volatility in life outcomes over decades. Fewer forced relocations, fewer career disruptions, fewer downward resets. Capital acts as a buffer against randomness. Capital acts as a stabilizer. That stability allows continuity, which quietly amplifies long-term outcomes. Importantly, work becoming optional doesn't mean work disappears. In fact, surveys consistently show that many financially independent individuals continue to work in some form. What changes is the nature of the work. Hours decrease, autonomy increases, purpose replaces urgency. The role of work shifts from income generation to identity expression, contribution, or curiosity. This is also where the idea of enough finally becomes visible. When additional income no longer increases security, behavior changes. Consumption stabilizes. Time becomes the scarce resource, not money. At this point, net worth stops being something you chase. It becomes infrastructure, shaping your options, your resilience, and how you move through the world. If this video helped you somehow, take a second to hit the like button. It really supports the channel. And if you're ready to stop chasing the illusion of success and start building real freedom, subscribe for more videos like this. Thank you for watching.